Qualifying coming up here at Brands Hatch. Welcome everybody to Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe, powered by AWS Sprint Cup, our first event of the season. A 25-strong entry, although there's a question mark over one car. We'll come to in a moment. But this is going to be fascinating because qualifying has been changed for this year to just 10 minutes per session. And although the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit is the shortest lap that we come to over the course of the season, 3.9 kilometres long, it still doesn't give you many laps within 10 minutes. You've got to be precise, you've got to make sure you don't exceed track limits and lose those laps, and time to perfection when you can get the best out of your Pirelli rubber. David Addison and John Watson, trackside, looking forward to 10 frantic minutes, Watty.
Well, you say frantic. The key, I think, to this qualifying and one we're going to follow very shortly thereafter is going to be he who makes the least track limit offences. Because if you are a stunning lap, let's say coming down through Graham Hill Bend, and you run wide, you've got to complete that lap, and you've got to lose it. And then that's the whole thing will be about containment. Whether you're the quickest car out there, it's of no consequence if your lap times are being deleted.
Very true. 48 is the car that is shared by Maro Engel and Lucas Auer. And Lucas Auer was fastest in pre-qualifying, FP2 if you prefer. Free practice was topped by Jules Gounon, again in a Mercedes AMG, but run by the Boots and VDS team, new to the Mercedes ranks this year. Alexander Sims makes a very welcome return to Sprint Cup. He had an axle problem in the pre-qualifying session for the Mad Panda Motorsport team. The British driver got the car back to the pits. They sorted out the issue and sent it back into the session. A bit of a mystery as to why it had happened. It's not the first time a Mercedes AMG apparently has had this problem. It's happened to the Haupt racing team in the past, but Ezequiel Perez Compact was very pleased it happened where it did, coming along Cooper Straight at the bottom of the circuit, not out the back. It's a one-off, we understand, for Alexander Sims in that car, but if it all goes well, you never know, Ezequiel said. That's number 9. That's the Gounon-Goetz car, Jules Gounon, Maxi Goetz, former sprint champion, of course. Maxi Goetz back in 2014, I should say, and a man to watch in the course of this session. So the pit lane busy. Now the one question mark is over the GSM Lamborghini, which was going to be driven by Marcus Paverud and James Kell. James I bumped into about an hour ago, and he was looking very poorly indeed. He said he got some food poisoning bug and was off in search of the medical centre. So I suspect that we won't be seeing the Lamborghini in James's session because he's just not up to it, but it might be that Marcus Paverud can drive in his qualifying session and force majeure allows the car into the race tomorrow. Well, WRT on collective toes. The fast lane is open and they've got the 3 cars already ready to go to get track position.
Well, let's say the front of those cars, the number 32, is the most likely one to take that provisional then for whatever pole position. And he's got 2 other team members back behind to act as sort of outriders, but whether that's the policy or not of the company, I don't know, but it certainly gives the 32 car the best opportunity to go out, get a couple of clear laps. The big trouble is when they come around us to go on to a flying lap, there'll be traffic still coming out of the pit. So, but nevertheless, you're starting at the front, which I always feel was a very good position to begin.
Now, this is a car that has really struggled so far today, the Rutronic Racing Porsche. It has had, and quite a few have had, a balance of performance adjustment before qualifying. The Porsches, singular I should say, Porsche, Lamborghinis, BMWs, Audis, Aston Martins have all dropped 10 kilos. The Ferrari has gained 10 kilos. Mercedes and McLaren stay as they were. So hopefully that 10 kilo loss of weight will help the Porsche. Max Hoffer you're looking at there for the Engschler team with the One Group Engineering joint venture, joint alliance to run the Audi. Luca Engschler, the other driver, DTM winner last week. The fast lane's getting busy. 1 or 2, though, might elect to go out at the very back, let all the traffic go, and then they can control where they are. Being in the middle of the pack is not much help. Green flag is shown. The voice in the background, Alain Adon, the race director. So actually, although there's probably a queue of, I'd say, about a dozen, John, ready to go, there's equally a big line of cars staying in the pit lane, trying to get out without cars around them.
I mean, there's always the theory that if you let everybody go out ahead of you and you wait until the last moment, the track is going to be better at that point than it would have been at the point where now watching the cars go onto circuit. But in fact, we've just had cars racing, so the track, I think, is pretty much up to speed. There's no reason to believe the track is deteriorated and will improve significantly between now and the end of this 10-minute qualifying session. So it's a roll of the dice. Some drivers prefer to go out early, some prefer to go out late. Really, it's just Hobson's choice, roll of the dice. What other cliche you care to use?
I try and avoid cliches like the plague, personally. There is the McLaren 159. Tom Gamble at the wheel of it. This is the sole McLaren. But that car, whether it's been driven by him or by Benjamin Goethe today, has gone really well.
Yeah, the McLaren has shown good form really since the beginning of the year. Paul Ricard in particular, then British GT at the weekend at Silverstone. There's the 007 Aston Martin trundling down. So expecting lots of big things from that car, which is driven by Matteo Drudi and Nicholas Beert. Particularly not Nicholas Drudi, but Matteo Drudi. So here is the WRT train, 3 cars setting off on their first flying lap.
So headed by 32, Dries Van Thor at the wheel of it, and behind him is Valentino Rossi. Now remember, we are setting the grid here for race 1. We're not combining these times. This is a standalone session for the front of the grid for the first race. And a little bit deep into Druids there, Van Thor.
Yeah, that was an error, I would say, coming up a hill into Druids, ran too wide. Would have had to get out of the throttle to check the front of the car, make sure it doesn't sweep out too wide. And he's been pretty much followed. Dries Van Thor has got fastest sector time in Sector 1 in spite of overrunning into Druids. Nevertheless, I think he knows he can do better. And to me, that indicates they've been unable to get the front tire temperatures up into the window that the tire needs to be to get the maximum amount of traction out of it.
A little bit wide there at Hawthorne's, the second of the BMWs, Valentino Rossi. The best time that we had in the pre-qualifying session was a 1:23. We got into the 22.9s at the end of free practice, so we're aiming for a time in the 1 minute 22s as the BMW Armada comes into Stirling. This is where Rossi was off the road at the start of the day in free practice, but Van Thor has done an absolute best in that middle sector, so this should put him top, albeit it might be a short-lived pole position because Alex Arca, number 99 Audi, is charging along behind him. But we'll get Van Thor over the line first up because that's going to give you a target with 7 minutes to go of the session. The benchmark time is offered up by Dries Van Thor. It is a 1:23.577. Rossi in the 24s, and Mario Engel goes second on a 23.9, and that is the very rapid Ferrari in the hands of Ben Green. Quickest of all, 1:23.465.
Yes, we're still a little bit away from the best we saw in that practice session we had this morning, and nevertheless, and now Giacomo Altway in his Emilio Frey Racing Ferrari round into Westfield Bend, running the curve and getting that car into that hop, skip and a jump, which doesn't really make the car particularly comfortable to drive. Now all the way up through Sheen Curve, everything looks very much in control for Altway. Look, he's got a purple sectors in sectors 1 and 2, a good exit under Stirling's on their limit, but nevertheless a good drive.
Alex Arca, fastest in the Audi. He's done a 1:23.251, but Altway, purple, 3 purples is exactly what he's after here as he comes up towards the timing line. Is Giacomo Altway going to get pole position? He goes across the line and he does so, goes quickest of all then, 1:23.085, but he's lost his absolute best in the middle sector to Matteo Drudi.
Exactly, Matteo Drudi, look at this pace, he's got personal best sector 1, overall quickest sector 2, the Aston comes across and goes quickest overall, 1:22.784. That's what we were expecting from Aston Martin, particularly with Drudi behind the wheel.
A little bit of dust settling at paddock, lots of foliage in the air, the petals of the flowers, which have been caught all day long on that part of the circuit. Lucas Leggere going through Westfield. Now, where are the purples coming? Drudi we've touched on, but now Lucas Leggere, absolute best in the first sector in the Audi.
Remember, Audi no longer a factory entry as such. The private teams are pulling the honour of the Ingolstadt company, and great effort indeed by Leggere, slightly more personal best, but 2/10 down on the best sector 2 time overall. Currently the car is showing in 8th position. This should see a significant improvement, about to come across the line any minute now.
So where is Leggere going to end up? Third is the answer as he breaks the beam. So third fastest, good effort. So it's Drudi, Altway, Leggere, Arca, Green, Gamble, Van Thor, Haase, Williams, Eastwood, the top 10. That is Ivan Klimenko in the Santa Lock Audi, and he's just gone 17th, 4 3/4 minutes to go. Drudi a little bit down in the middle sector this time, so maybe he's heading for the pit lane.
And where is the number 9, Max Goetz? Max Goetz's car was the quickest car in practice this morning, currently only in 11th. That's the car shared by Jules Gounon. And what's the Aston going to do this time? Because it going any quicker or not? 1:22.7 was his best, 22.7.8, that last at 1:25.1.
Van Thor, though, should be an improver, which, oh no, comes into the pit lane. So 2 personal bests, but then heads for the pits. Lucas Legere third. I think we touched on more of the BMWs come in, possibly for a tyre swap.
4 minutes to go.
Got to be quick. James Jakes making a GT3 debut. Comes out of Sterling's. He's new to Fanatec GT. He's been getting used to the car and reminding himself what Brands Hatch is all about and what GT3 feels like. So there's a lot of learning going on in a short space of time. But James Jakes' calibre should shine through. He's heading up towards the timing line now. At the moment, 24th and slowest of those that have done a time. And as he breaks the beam, that lap yet to be revealed on the timing screen. It is now 23rd fastest, moves up 125.3. This is Rhys Barr, another newcomer to the championship. Marcus Pavarud, number 18 Lamborghini. I was mentioning he's the travails of his co-driver James Kell. Well, Marcus is out in this session.
So currently 17th quickest, Rhys Barr, and he's what is he? Well, he's 4/10 of a second down on what would be the car next up was Valentino Rossi. So Rossi's initial run, which looked like it was going to match that of Dries van Voor, hasn't been able to maintain that. Van Voor is currently down in 7th. He's been dropping. Max Hofer, in his Audi, he's been going upwards. He's up to 12th.
Over the timing line goes Rhys Barr and stays 17th fastest. This is Alexander Sims, back out after a pit stop, so running a little bit out of sequence for everybody else. This will be the first lap on which he does a time. So wherever this puts him is going to be a benefit, and he really would like to be within that top 20. 18th, in fact, would put him ahead of Patrick Niederhauser's Porsche, which would be quite good to make the Porsche slowest in Pro. Alexander Sims goes 17th then. That'll do, won't it? That puts him up ahead of Niederhauser.
Yes, I mean, a big improvement on what we saw this morning, but here we go, McLaren, Tom Gamble, quickest in Sector 1. McLaren has been absolutely stellar so far in this year, both in Europe and Great Britain. So wait and see what happens coming. The second sector will come up in a couple of corners' time.
The curve bounces a little bit as he goes through the corner, but it's looking good, this. And Ben Green, look at this, personal and absolute best for the Ferrari driver.
Yes, I was going to say the challenge to McLaren is going to come from the number 14 Ferrari there. Well, that's the Altaway car. So, in fact, two cars running side by side.
Together they are. Engel has just gone second, number 48 Mercedes. Altaway breaks the beam, Ben Green breaks the beam, and Ben Green fastest, 122.768, quickest by 16 thousandths over Mattia Drudi. This is quite something from Ben.
Yeah, two very good laps, one from Drudi, his lap still stands, that's the lap he set slightly earlier. But Ben Green has, the Audi running, just coming out, Sterling's running the curb. So Christopher Hauser.
He was off at Sterling's in pre-qualifying, had a big lose at Sheen Curve that finished at Sterling's. But personal best, so 88 Audi. From the very experienced Audi driver, Christopher Hauser, up to 6th, good lap.
So that's the lead Audi just ahead of Lucas Legere. And in fact, you've got 3 Audis altogether. Alex Arca rounding those out in 8th place. Dries van Voor, personal best, Sector 1, needs to find considerable amount of time, needs to find 8/10 of a second to put the BMW on that provisional pole position. And he's found a bunch of time in that middle sector, just a 10th and a bit up over the rest of the best of the rest, whichever.
Found the dirt on the exit of Sterling's, didn't he? And Van Voor now pressing on. So the time he's got to beat is a 122.768. Is this pole position for Dries van Voor then as he comes across the timing line? The answer is no, 3rd fastest. So Dries van Voor, 3rd. It is Ben Green, the DTM Trophy champion, from Mattia Drudi, the reigning champion, to triple sprint champion Dries van Voor. And Patrick Niederhauser is down in 21st. This Porsche is having a horrible day.
I mean, there's nothing obvious. You watch the car around the racetrack, you can't say it looks a handful. And I mean, when you go on board the onboard camera, it doesn't look like Niederhauser or whoever is having a struggle. It's just the car doesn't appear to have any pace.
No, and that is no better. In terms of, okay, an improvement up to 19th, but then instantly drops to 20th.
Checkered flag.
And the checkered flag is out, as you hear from the race director. So, yeah, that Porsche is slowest in Pro. Really disappointing.
Callum Williams pops up into 10th position. Charlie Eastwood, we're following now in the Ferrari in 11th, looking to make some improvement. He's got personal best, and 1st and 2nd sector are reasonable. In fact, almost half a second gain in that middle sector. So this should, well, possibly should, yes, it will, no doubt, see Eastwood get into the top 10.
Yeah, 2 greens, 2 personal best. Maxi Gertz only 14th, the other driver represented on the graphic. Over the line goes Charlie Eastwood, 9th, well done.
16:30.
And 10 minutes before we get Q2 underway. And this car will have Jules Gounon at the wheel of it, but Maxi Gertz will not be satisfied with 14th, and he's pressing on as he rides the curb at Sheen Curve. Heading now into Sterling's then. personal best, but he's down in the middle sector and he's wide at Sterling's as well. Maxi Goetz has got to try and hope that the first and third sectors are enough to bring the car up the grid by a row, but it's so hard to overtake round here. Qualifying is vital. He's now down to 15th. Come on, Maxi.
Yeah, that's the key to Brands Hatch. Qualifying, it's tough to overtake. These are large cars. It's not the biggest of circuits.
12th fastest.
And that's a disappointment. I mean,
yeah.
I didn't expect that because the car was so dominant in practice session this morning, and then Max Goetz has not been able to follow up the time set by Jules Gounon. So that is a disappointment. 1:23.5 in this session against a 22.9 in practice session this morning when the track was not in the condition that it is right now, and it was also different temperatures.
Patrick Niederhauser improved at the end to get up to 17th. Thierry Vermeulen, and here in the foreground, Consta Lapalainen at the Emil Frey Racing Team getting set. And Charles Wirtz there will take over number 32 BMW. He's already to jump on board as Maxime Martin was waiting for Valentino Rossi to bring his car down the pit road. Right, let's look at the order then at the end of Q1. This is your provisional grid for the first race. And Ben Green takes the first pole position in Fanatec GT. Fantastic effort by the British driver, with Mathieu Drudi second and Dries Van Thor third. Tom Gamble fourth ahead of Mauro Engel and then Giacomo Eltway. Christopher Hauser seventh, although his team manager being summoned to the race director. Eighth, Lucas Legeret, ninth, Charlie Eastwood and Alex Arca 10th. After that, Callum Williams from a disappointed Maxi Goetz, Valentino Rossi 13th from Aurelien Panis and Max Hofer. Tom Fleming, double race winner here a few weeks ago in the UK Ferrari Challenge, 16th from Patrick Niederhauser, Reece Barr, Sean Hudspeth and Alexander Sims. 21st, Paul Everard from Ivan Klimenko and Dante Raponge, Marcus Pavarud 24th from James Jakes, rounding out the order. Notice just the one name against number 18, James Cowell having withdrawn from Q2.
We're having an off-the-cuff comment or question and answer before we went live as to who do we believe will be on pole position. I don't think anybody that Ben Green would be, or that the Aston Martin of Matteo Drudi would be a serious threat for that pole position on the front row of the grid in second.
Fantastic effort there by Ben Green. Really, really 100%, good.
100%. Brilliant effort.
Because he's not an experienced Ferrari driver either. The bulk of his racing has been in BMWs in recent years. Came out of Ginetta Junior Racing, but drove for BMW to win at the Red Bull Ring in the ADAC GT Masters 2 years ago. DTM Trophy champion. Right, Maxime Martin ready to get on board number 46. And having talked about Ben Green, what a fantastic job he has done. Let's hear from him. Antonio Rankin is in the pit lane with our pole man.
Ben, that was a brilliant lap and considerably faster in the previous sessions.
Yeah, I think the track was really bad in the pre-quali. I think there was maybe some oil or something down because everyone was slower. And yeah, now with the new tyres, everyone really pushing in qualifying. The times come back a bit, but yeah, pretty nice. Happy with that.
Do you think there's more pace to be found then?
Not much from me. I had one small mistake, but a 10th or so nothing more.
Okay, well, with the 10th to gain, let's see if we can get any better. Thank you.
Thank you.
All smiles, Ben Green. Good effort, that, and high pressure.
I think an outstanding effort, because if you're not familiar with a GT Ferrari, to jump into it, to come to Brands Hatch, which is a tough circuit, and to go out and nail it. Okay, he said a little error, but frankly, I think he'd be very happy with that lap. You can be critical of yourself, but that was a stellar lap from Ben Green.
Let's have a look at the highlights then. Marcus Pavarud out on track, and early pace being offered up by the Mauro Engel Winwood racing car. In number 69, Giacomo Eltway, the Red Bull colours, with the track to himself, was quick, and we also had Lucas Legeret looking rapid early on, but when a proper pattern started to emerge, it was some of those familiar names. One or two surprises up at the front. Alex Arca was looking good early doors. The McLaren, again, there or thereabouts. This time Tom Gamble getting it up to fourth fastest by the end of the session, with Dries Van Thor heading for third, despite having to really hustle the car out of Sterling's and using all of the road and then a bit. Mathieu Drudi, second, the reigning champion, then looking good as he becomes ever more familiar with, and the car gets quicker. This new Aston Martin, but fastest of all, Ben Green, by his own admission, made a tiny error, but it matters not. He is on pole for the first time in Fanatec GT. Fast lane is open. 4 minutes before Q2 gets underway, but again, WRT, send the fleet down the pit lane.
This is real pressure because you've got little time to come back in, do your driver change, put on a fresh set of rubber, get back out again. You're hardly catching your breath. So if the driver who's been in Q1 comes in and says, I've got a little issue, I've got too much of this or too much of the other, there's hardly time for the team to effect any changes before the cars are going to be back out onto pit lane and Q2 to get underway.
So there's the car that's topped the Q1 times. It will be given now to Konsta Lapalainen. Pressure for him. He's got to try and emulate his teammate, Charles Weerts, triple champion in the Sprint Cup, ahead of Maxime Martin, 48 there. The yellow and green Mercedes, that's now going to be Lucas Auer. The number 57 Mercedes, Marcus Gustafsson. 69 will go to Thierry Vermeulen. Come the other way, number 10 Mercedes will go from Aurélien Panis to César Gazeau. We've got a couple of cars also being investigated for pit lane speeding, but 99 certainly won't, waiting for its wheels to be adorned. And then Ricardo Feller, the other half of last year's championship winning duo, he'll go down the pit lane.
So big pressure now for Nicolas Beard in the 007 Aston Martin to try and consolidate what was done by Matteo Drudi just a few minutes ago. As we wait for the track to go green, WRT once again controlling, if that's what it is, pit lane exit.
So 18 there, the Lamborghini in the background. We don't expect that car to go out. 30 drop down, Sander Hahn will be at the wheel of it. Rumbles his way down to join the other WRT BMWs at pit exit. The Mad Panda Motorsport entry now goes to Patron, to Ezequiel Perez Companc. Good character, Ezequiel.
Yeah, I wish you would tell us what Mad Panda Motorsport's all about.
I had another go at lunchtime, and he wasn't for biting. But that car, you've got to say, Rutronic either are all at sea with the setup of it, or it's something to do with the BOP. Everybody, of course, wants a better BOP, and Claude Semon, the technical delegate for the championship, has to try and listen to all the complaints and protestations, but also look at the hard, fast data. But it's a tough call, but that Porsche really has struggled. And of course, the downside is there's only one to base it on. It's not like there are another two further up the grid. You can't say your car is not on the pace of the others because there are no others. So that's the only Porsche you can measure it against.
Yeah, but I mean, there is so much information available within the Porsche family, having raced here at Brands Hatch, to know the base setup. And nothing has fundamentally changed. The tire is essentially the same tire we had over the last season, certainly. So what are the differences? Well, the only differences are on the day, the ambient temperature, track conditions. But it is a disappointment to see the Porsche not being able to find the pace that we were anticipating.
So there, the queue of cars getting longer and longer and longer. And as ever, managing the traffic is going to be absolutely vital.
Yes, I think, in fairness, I think most people did get a pretty good run, a clear lap. We weren't aware of anybody having a time or losing time because of another car not being aware that he was being caught or they were being caught quickly. So pretty good management, bearing in mind 25 cars around the 2.4 mile Brands Hatch circuit. Not a lot of space, and these are big, wide cars.
So there's Konsta Lapalainen's Ferrari joining the queue. Charles Weerts will be first out. And let's see how Q2 fares. 99 drop down. Ricardo Feller at the wheel of the Audi. That's on its way. Wheels are going on 88. Lorenzo Ferrari's Audi. And just 10 minutes once again to determine grid positions. This for the second of tomorrow's two 1 hour mandatory pit stop races. Pit window 25 to 35 minutes. And the beauty of this championship, of course, is that the pit stops can be as quick as possible. There's no time limit on them, so there is that pit stop competition. Now 18 making its way down the pit lane. So does that suggest that Marcus Pavarud is going to be driving it alone tomorrow and therefore needs to do a time in
And
this?
green flag.
So James Kell has certainly stood down for today. Marcus Pavarud taking the car out. So we are in business. 10 minutes, clock ticking on down. Here we go. Ben Green, our first Rover pole position winner of the year. Let's see who the second one is going to be. There'll be those presentations at the end of the session. Right, Jules Gounon is about to be unleashed. And
yes.
If anybody can hustle that car around, it's Jules.
No question. He did it this morning in the practice session. He's sitting there. He's going to let these cars go out and do their first flying lap. And some of them will come in at the end of the first lap, some will stay out. But they're re-rolls. He's given himself that sort of half a lap of opportunity to believe that by going out now, and when he starts his flying lap, he'll have a clear lap at which to try and achieve a pole position.
That's not snow, you can see, it's just the flora in the air as Charles Wirtz comes out of Westfield then, accelerates now through towards Sheen Curve and makes that climb up now towards Stirling. So the BMW with the road to itself.
Yeah, rather sad looking marker cone up at Sheen Curve has been given a hammering by the looks of things over all the day's activities. Wirtz just trying to put a bit more energy into the Pirelli tires. He comes down into Clark clearways and then launches himself off on his first flying lap. He ran wide in the pre-qualifying session earlier today. Coming out of Paddock Hill, just kept his foot buried in it. We thought it maybe damaged the front splitter of the car, but he managed to get away with it and runs. You can hear him running over the serrations on the curbing. And then up the hill again, the same thing that Van Thor had. Can't get the nose to tuck in on that first flying lap. Dries Van Thor had precisely the same issue on his first flying lap.
So Charles Wirtz heads towards us, and 8 minutes of the session now remain. And ignore the fact that he's gone purple. He's the only person to get to that sector point on a flying lap. So now it starts to change as those behind might be going even quicker. But it's a real sort of harem-scarum session, as you saw. That is Wirtz Senior, Yves Wirtz, looking at the data in the pit box. And again, all of that flora in the air. It does make you think that the weather has deteriorated. But Charles Wirtz has bought himself absolutely perfect track space.
Yeah, he has. Coming through Hawthorns, I thought he'd slowed down. Maybe it was just the image and the position of the camera. But anyway, he looks like he's still running. We're going to see what his second sector time is. So Maxime Martin had purple in sector 1. He's now being surpassed by Engsler, and the Audi's gone quickest in sector 1.
Well, Luca Engsler's another one that comes to good racing stock, but really high quality entry again this year. So as the cars now come up towards the end of the first flying lap, Charles Wirtz will go on to pole position. We've got him as the first one over the beam to do a gun lap, and Charles Wirtz then does a 1:23.556. Maxime Martin goes faster though in number 46 BMW, and he does a 23.1. Thierry Vermeulen goes third. Here comes Lucas Auer and goes by, and second fastest for the Mercedes.
Well, it was that. It's not Mingus. I mean, it's just changing. Lucas Auer, Mingus, I can't keep up with the timing and scoring. It's changing by the cars coming across the lap.
And then it'll calm down a little bit because it's their first effort. So Martin was quickest. Ricardo Feller is quickest. There's the now rather busy Marcus Pavarud having another session in the car. And Ricardo Feller's time, 1:22.951. Now, what about a Jules Gounon lap? We're yet to see it. Here he is with nobody around him. You've got people behind him, admittedly, but they're not catching him. So Gounon comes up to the line.
But no purple sectors for Gounon on his first flying lap. It doesn't mean he's not going to put that car provisionally on pole, because his personal best might be good enough, but he has to finish the lap to find out where Gounon is going to be. Second. And he's just over a tenth of a second away from the time set by Ricardo Feller in the 99 Tracer attempt to Audi.
As far as the Ferraris are concerned, Conte Lapalainen 6th, and there over the line Alessio Dono, last year's European champion in Ferraris, goes 10th, and that's also was briefly the Silver Cup pole, but now Charles Clark 7th takes the silver pole. Ricardo Feller in the meantime, absolute best sector 1. Jules Gounon, absolute best sector 1. And Lucas Auer also doing personals to improve. Feller, absolute best middle sector. So the Audi, quickest at the moment, should go quicker again. We've now got Charles Wirtz getting up to third fastest. Here comes Ricardo Feller. 22.9 is the time to beat. He goes across the line. 22.7, even quicker for pole.
Yeah, good effort indeed by Ricardo Feller. It just illustrates how good an Audi is around Brands Hatch, albeit it's no longer a factory entry, but Ricardo Feller and Alex Arca and that car are a real threat. Benjamin Gota has popped up to third in the first, or the only McLaren here, the Garage 59, the 1:23.085. So the gap between first and third, 3/10 of a second. But here, the man who might say thinks the pole is going to be his, he's had to work for it.
But look, Alessio Dono, 2 absolute bests. Gounon goes quickest, but for how long? Because Alessio Dono, who has been, for my money, the star of the day, having never raced here before, is looking as though he could get pole position away from Jules Gounon, and that's quite a scalp to claim. Over the line goes Dono, and the answer to where he is only third in the end. It was a good last sector, but not good enough. But he's still well clear in the Silver Cup. So Alessio Dono goes third. It is Gounon, Feller, Dono, Wirtz, Goethe, Martin.
Sam de Haan currently in 21st position, so he's looking to see a big improvement. Simon Gachet up to 13th in his Audi. Sam de Haan comes across the line. Well, that's a bit of an and the gravel 21.
That is Mathis Lismont. That I would offer you is Sterling's, and that's going to be a stoppage almost inevitably. He's got it wrong at Sterling's. He's in the gravel. Am I right at Sterling's?
Yes, it was coming out of Sheen curve up into Sterling's.
Yeah.
Probably much the same as we saw earlier. Where this is where the same corner that Christopher Haase went off. Likewise, Valentino Rossi, and I suspect for much the same reasons. So the session, I no doubt, will be red flag to get that car removed to safety.
Red flag,
yeah,
red
well, there
flag.
we go.
Spot on. And then the question would be whether it will be restarted with 3.5 minutes on the clock. There's probably time for an outlap and at least one flyer, so I suspect we will go green again. That'll be at the discretion of the race director, but with 3 minutes and 36 seconds on the clock, there's probably time, a relevance, if you like, in the time available to allow people to go quicker. So Jules Gounon, fastest then from Ricardo Feller and Eliseo Dorno. 4th, Charles Wirtz. 5th, Benjamin Goethe and Maxime Martin 6th. 7th, Lorenzo Ferrari. Lucas Auer 8th. He had a lap time disallowed. 9th, quickest, Constant Apolainen in the car that is quickest for race 1. And 10th, Charles Clark in the Aston Martin. That's a good effort. Gilles Magnus is 11th from Luca Engschler, Simon Gachet, Sven Muller's Porsche and Thierry Vermeulen only 15th. Nicolas Bart only 16th. Then it's Cesar Gazo, Ezekiel Perez Compact, Jeff Makiel, Sam de Haan, Hugo Cook, and the car that's in the gravel by this method, 22nd of Mathis Lismont from Marcus Pavrud, only 24th Salah Joluch, and no time yet for Marcus Gustafsson. But it just like it all got away under braking from Lismont, and around he went.
Yeah, and maybe a little bit of damage to that rear wing. Whether the car can be brought back to the pits and returned back onto the circuit, somehow I doubt it. But we've got 3 minutes and 36 seconds to go, so teams preparing there are the recovery squad, thinking there is a snatch point on the front of all these GT3 cars, so there is the recovery vehicle coming in, and the Aston will be pulled out, and then hopefully be able to drive back to its pit garage.
But will lose its best lap time thus far for causing the red flag. So 1 minute 24.8 will be scratched, and will be then, 26.4 now is what he has to count, because the car was 21st. It's lost its lap time. It's now 23rd. So Mathis Lismont drops a row on the grid.
Surprised to see the 51 Ferrari so far down. That was a car Charlie Eastwood was driving, but the Salah Joluch is way better than that time, so there's obviously clearly a 137 is a major problem, or he might have only just gone out towards the end of the session, and he was the one that got caught out mostly by the red flag.
I think you're right. I think he was building up for a lap, wasn't he? But then the red flag got in the way. Right, the fast lane is open, so we're not far off getting the session underway, but it may well be without the Aston Martin. We'll see. Right, so 3 minutes and 36 seconds to go. I think as soon as they've dragged that car out, it can drive back. Yeah,
it's in gear. You can see the rear wheels aren't turning. So they've got to resolve that little issue. Whether the engine, I don't think the engine's running right now, so he's got to somehow or other get the engine running, get the gear sorted out before he can get that car rolling back into the pit lane.
Charles Wirtz joins the queue. The Emile Frey Racing Ferraris at the front with Thierry Vermeulen. He's another one that wants to get on with the programme, because he's only 15th, which will be a big disappointment. The Porsche looking a bit better, 14th, but I'm not convinced it's going to stay there.
Well, you'd like to think, or you'd imagine that certainly Vermeulen will, and he's directly behind the Porsche with the pace of Ferrari that we've seen throughout the day. Nicolas Bayet in the number 7, Aston Martin, the car that Matteo Drudi put onto the provisional front row of the grid for race 1. And who's else? Sam de Haan, maybe. And of course, Joluch in the number 51 Ferrari.
So that number 9 is Jules Gounon, fastest by just 47 thousandths of a second. And just to show you how competitive GT3 racing is, if you didn't know, 17 cars, 17 of 25 cars covered by less than a second.
I think they've got to improve on the BOP to get that much tighter. I mean, that's really, normally I'd expect to see 25 cars covered by less than a second.
He jokes, but only just because, yeah, it is incredibly tight, and you're looking at thousandths of seconds as the margin between them. So that is then...
Green flag, green flag.
The green flag in the background being ordered by the race director. Thierry Vermeulen I think he's too far up the pit lane there, because he's gone through pit out,
Well,
hasn't he?
There's a white line just ahead of the Ferrari.
Yeah.
Where
But
the red light is.
He doesn't know to go, because there's the light. He's got it now, but
Yeah.
that was a long time coming on. So even though the green flag had been called for, it was about 20 seconds, I think, give or take, before people started to move. The instruction to the teams, but it wasn't picked up on seemingly by the marshals. Anyway, it has been now, but for those at the back of the queue, those 20 seconds might be quite crucial to getting onto another lap.
The 1-1-1. It'll be Simon Gachet behind the wheel. He knows his way around an Audi as well as anybody does.
Yeah, he does now, doesn't he? So 3 minutes 36 when the call came to restart the session. An out lap, possibly 2 flying for those at the front of the queue. 1 flying if you're at the back. So the cars go onto the Grand Prix loop. Let's have a look at 88 being released. Lorenzo Ferrari went, stopped, went, got in the way of number 12 Aston Martin, that was.
Hard to tell whether the engineer giving the instruction or the driver behind the wheel didn't quite react as quickly as possible. That will be looked at as a possible unsafe release. And the penalty, well, there could be a penalty.
I think the car controller thought the gap was there, then realised it wasn't, but it was too late to stop the car. Anyway, the stewards will have a look. We want to have a look at Thierry Vermeulen, because he was really impressive here 12 months ago, but he's only 15th fastest right now. 2 minutes are on the clock as he comes across the timing line now. Then up towards Paddock Hill Bend goes Vermeulen, and because he was out first, he's got a clear road ahead of him, so improvements should be on here.
It was very impressive that I felt this morning. Was running in the top 6 pretty much all the way through, and the Ferrari is showing itself to be very, very effective here at Brands Hatch. So down the hill into Graham Hill Bends, gets through, don't run too wide, that's just about on the limit, but that sort of has to be.
He's running in the DTM again this year, so he goes well in these sprint GT style races, even though this is double driver, not single like the German championship is. Down towards the right of Hawthorne's next, and an improvement within Sector 1 for him, but an absolute best in Sector 1 by Riccardo Feller. So there's more shuffling to come of this order, I promise you.
Well, Riccardo Feller currently second quickest, what, just 47 thousandths of a second slower than Jules Gounon, and his personal best, not only personal best, purple in Sector 1, as you point out. Waiting to see what that ID will do in Sector 2 as we look at the Ferrari coming into Stirling's.
So Thierry Vermeulen wide up the curb, but not excessively so, and he's on the limit, you can see from the movement in the car. So an improvement should come here. Eliseo Dono, I should say, 71 Ferrari has not yet gone back out. Everybody else is on the racetrack. Here comes Vermeulen, and when he breaks the beam, he will improve, will he, from 15th? Yeah, up to 2nd. How about that? Massive improvement. So it is Gounon, Vermeulen and Riccardo Feller, but Feller, look, with an absolute and a personal best, should be on for an improvement. You're riding with him as he comes up towards the line then. Is this pole for the reigning champion? The answer is no. He stays 3rd. He's junk time in the last sector. So Riccardo Feller stays 3rd fastest.
Lucas Hauer in the 48 Mercedes, only 10th right now, but purple Sector 1. So he's on a flying lap, and we've got 12 seconds remaining before the flag comes out. He will complete this lap, and the flag will have fallen.
Riccardo Feller had the lap taken off him for track limit offences, so
Check red flag, check red flag.
self-induced in a sense. You've got Lucas Hauer pressing on there up towards the line. Jules Gounon was down in Sector 1. He was up in Sector 2 with an absolute best. So Jules Gounon is still on pole by only 37 thousandths of a second. Is he going to be able to stretch the margin? A 22.699 was the earlier best. A 22.5 is even better, but this is Lucas Hauer. The other Mercedes then. This could be a shot at pole position for Lucas Hauer. 15th he was, breaks the beam. Pole position. Lucas Hauer goes top of the times by 0.143 of a second.
Wow, that was impressive. I mean, we know how good Jules Gounon is, but Lucas Hauer went out in the 48 Mercedes and beat Jules Gounon by almost 0.15 of a second. I mean, that sounds a small amount of time, but to both drivers, it's the world.
So Hauer, Gounon, Vermeulen, Feller, Dono, who didn't go back out, Lapalainen, Magnus, and a change right at the very end because Lapalainen goes 2nd. Constant Lapalainen onto the front row of the grid with a 1:22.437 ahead of Jules Gounon. And then he has the lap taken off him. So scratch all of that. So briefly, Lapalainen went 2nd, he ends up 6th. So Lucas Hauer Mauro Engel sort of joining in the celebrations of his teammates' effort, understandably. But Lucas Auer fastest from Jules Gounon, and Benjamin Goethe right at the very end, up to 4th fastest in the McLaren. Last couple of cars to take the flag, so we're not entirely done yet. Sven Müller 9th in the Porsche. Finally, something positive to cheer about for Porsche fans.
Don't know why, don't know where the pace came from, but suddenly it's there. Importantly, it's there. The car will start back in the 5th row of the grid, a lot better than starting back in the 10th row, where we were looking at, certainly for race 1.
So, after all of that, Lucas Auer fastest by 0.143 of a second, but so much of that shuffling towards the end was not only by people improving, but other people losing lap times because of track limit offences. Possibly Graham Hill Bend more than anywhere else, actually, running wide on the exit of turn 3. Going to scrutineering there, the pole position car for Q2, Lucas Auer. Everybody else down the pit lane, but we thought the 10 minutes were going to be short, sharp and dramatic, and we weren't wrong.
I love this format where you've got a sort of short, sharp opportunity. You've got effectively maybe 4 flying laps in that 10-minute sector, and you might want to make a pit stop in between times, but with a great effort indeed by the entire field. But Lucas Auer, I think, almost caught everybody unawares with the pace by ending up ahead of the number 9 Mercedes, Jules Gounon, and so it's a Mercedes front row lockout with Vermeulen and Benjamin Goethe and Ferrari and McLaren respectively.
So Lucas Auer will be on the pole position when we go racing, and it will be Jules Gounon alongside him. Thierry Vermeulen 3rd from Benjamin Goethe, Riccardo Feller 5th, then Eliseo O'Donnell, Conte Lapalainen and Gilles Magnus 8th. 9th, Sven Müller, 10th, Charles Weerts. Long way back, the BMW. Then you've got Maxime Martin, Lorenzo Ferrari, Luca Engschler 13th ahead of Charles Clark, Cesar Gazzo, Hugo Cook 16th, Sam de Haan, Simon Gachet, Ezekiel Perez-Companc and Nicolas Bart. Silver Cup pole, Eliseo O'Donnell, and gold to Gilles Magnus. Outside of that top 20, 21st was Jeff Mackiels from Marcus Gustafsson, and then Marcus Paverud doing 2 qualifying sessions. Salah Joloch never improved from 24th, rather mysteriously. And Mathis Lismont at the back after going off the road and losing his best lap time as the cause of the red flag. There's the second page of the order, just confirming Marcus Paverud doing both qualifying sessions today, and hopefully James Kell is going to be well enough to race tomorrow, but he did look decidedly unwell about an hour ago. So, Ben Green and Lucas Auer will start on the 2 pole positions on the front row, or the front rover in a sense, because the Rover Oil Pole Position Awards will be presented, 1 to Ben and 1 to Lucas, and that ceremony will be taking place very shortly. You can see that the Mercedes is already in its area up at the top, ready for the pole position award. It's a busy day of racing at Brands Hatch. More support race action will be getting underway very shortly. A race that will have pit stops, so the pit lane will be cleared rapidly. And we can have a look at some of the highlights of Q2 that began again with number 32 BMW being out on track early doors. Charles Weerts at the wheel of it, and Eliseo O'Donnell has just looked so good today, but even allowing the twitch coming down towards Clark Curve, still 3rd by the end, and pole positioning class, a great effort. Off the road went Mathis Lismont, getting it wrong at Stirling's, and that meant that we had a red flag. And on the restart, Thierry Vermeulen hurled the Ferrari around to get it up the order, and was 3rd behind Jules Gounon's Mercedes that took 2nd fastest, although Jules' body language suggested he was rather miffed to be pipped by this car of Lucas Auer. So it is a Mercedes lockout on the front row, but Lucas Auer the faster of the 2. So the car's now being pushed up the pit lane for scrutineering checks. To the right on track is another grid of cars lining up ready to go racing. There the Rover Motor Oil banners being put in place, and the pseudo cans of oil ready for the photographs as the backdrop. Lucas Auer is there, and there the ComTU team putting their Aston Martins back towards the garages. Pit lane, as I say, needing to be clear because of the next race having the pit stops. Lucas Auer takes his Rover Pole Award. New this year, Rover Oil's the official oil partner of the Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe series. And a really impressive job that by Lucas Auer.
Yeah, I think what Ben Green and Lucas Auer did, the unpredictability of qualifying, I think was illustrated by those 2 outstanding performances. The other issue I have is where were the BMWs? And we saw up in Druids, both the 46 and the 32, struggling to get the nose of the car turned in. And I think that's the fundamental issue that has prevented BMW getting further up the grid than one would have expected on the natural pace of both the drivers and the cars.
And we know that it's hard to overtake around here, so much of the work has to be done in qualifying, while Lucas Auer is in the pound seats, isn't he? He's on pole and he's with Antonia.
Well, congratulations. That was a mega lap. How did you find over half a second?
Well, the first run got interrupted quite quickly on my first lap. We pitted, then I had the track limit, and then it got really under pressure, and we decided just to go for one lap, make it clear, and the car was just mega job to the team, and we delivered under pressure.
Does this mean good things tomorrow? Will it be translated?
Well, for sure, I would rather start from the front than anywhere else, so should be a good sign.
Well, brilliant. Congratulations on your Rover Pole Britain Award.
Job well done by Lucas Auer and Ben Green, the other Rover Pole Award. So we'll see what pans out tomorrow. But Lucas Auer celebrates. There's Ben Green, who did an equally good job. Perhaps more of a surprise in a sense, given that he's less experienced, but he was the man that came out on top of Q1. And we look forward to racing tomorrow. 2 races here at Brands Hatch, the first of which will be on air from 10:30. Join us for what promises to be a great start to the Sprint Cup season. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.